where it was the DDG group, that we should always play the exact same 60. And I think that's something that, I mean, not everyone's testing group does, but I think that's what you want to be on that kind of same page. Like, you should be able to argue each other into what you think is right, or like agree with your teammate eventually. But you should, at the end of the day, play the same 60 in the tournament, because one of you is correct and you should just put enough time, or one of you should like give in eventually. And if someone has just like a slight edge in the argument, like, then they're right? You just kind of give up. Like, don't let your pride get in your way of having to be right, and just like end up on the same page.
Yo, what up, guys? Welcome to Fed Town, number one Pokemon podcast in the world. These are facts. Look them up in a book. Google it. There was even a poll that, I mean, we weren't number one on the poll, but like, obviously these people aren't Googling and they're not looking it up in their local library. I know COVID's happening and it's tough to get there, but like, I mean, if you need the truth, dude, hit up your local library, look it up in a book. It's there. It's Monday, guys. Back with everyone's favorite show. You know, we got the one-on-ones. Make sure you like, subscribe. So we just continue doing this stuff. Like, everything helps. Every little thing you guys do helps. So if you're on the audio only, leave a review. And if you do that, you have a chance to get on the show. Like I said, every week I'm going to take either a comment off the YouTube channel that a person either commented and liked the video, or a review that they left on iTunes or Spotify. So this week we have Chris Thorne, always supporting. Really appreciate it. But on last week's episode, he left a comment and said, hey, ADP is not the problem. Oh, I got to listen to this. And that's the point, man. We out there spitting the facts, and you gotta listen to these things, man. Especially with the breakdowns now. When I got Isaiah and Raul with me, it brings those breakdowns to a whole new level. So make sure you tune in for those. But we're starting out. It's the new year, guys. So we're starting out this year with a banger, and I mean, like always, we have the best guests on Fade Town. It does not get, when it comes to competitive Pokemon, TCG, there does not get better guests than us. And we got the man, the myth, the legend, Azul GG. How's it going, brother?
Not much. Chilling. Yeah, New Year just started, so looking forward to hopefully something slightly better than what we just went through.
Yeah, it can only go up, right? I mean,
I would hope so.
Right, if it goes down, like, I think we're all in trouble. I kind of just want to jump into it because I think you're such a big name in the community. But like the backstory, I think people would love to hear it. Like, you've been playing Pokemon a long time. Yeah. How did you get into this game?
I mean, I always had, like, I remember, like, I think the first. I always had cards like everyone else growing up. I think the first cards I had were like the first cards that my dad got for me were like the movie cards, where they were like from scenes in the movie. But then, you know, we got other cards, and we never really played the game until, like, we've had cards like since they came out, as far as I can remember. But we didn't actually play the game until 2000 and like learn how to play the rules of the game. Like, me and my siblings. Okay. Yeah, me and my siblings until like 2009. We moved back to Massachusetts area and met a friend who like had Pokemon cards as well, and they played, and they actually went to League. So then they were like, you should come to League, and then we went to League. Met the League leader, and she was super nice and super helpful. So big shout out to the League leader all the way back then, because she was a big influence, I think, in like, you know, getting us into the game and helping out, because she was super nice, super helpful. And then we just started, you know, picking up on things from there. Me and my siblings did, playing as much as we could, and played a lot together. And yeah, it just kind of, like, that's where it all started. Yeah, we just had a friend who actually went to League and then told us we should come to League, so we went to League, and then, you know, went to our first battle roads, and so far from there. That's
dope. So there's other. So how many siblings do you have?
I have four siblings.
And
two sisters, 2 brothers.
And they're not active in the game anymore, or?
Not anymore. No,
No,
no. They've all
no.
moved on.
They all
Only
moved on.
three of them used to play. Older
Okay.
sister didn't ever play, but the other three played. Um, up until the point, I think my two brothers, as soon as they got into masters, like the year they would go into masters, they quit right before then. And
Okay.
my sister played a little bit in seniors.
Okay.
She played mostly in juniors, but she played maybe a decent amount in seniors. I don't really remember, but she never even got close to becoming a masters
Master. That's cool.
division.
I mean, I hear about it all the time. There's a lot of people that have family that start playing, so it's really cool to like have that. Kind of keeps you going, right? Like to have that person that's just there that would play with you. You don't have to go look for anyone. You're just like, hey, bro, let's roll. Let's play a deck. You know?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's like I think a big help with like me getting to the point where I am, because me and my brothers were always not competitive with each other, but competitive in the sense that we like wanted to do well at stuff we did. I think we all kind of had that same mentality, and probably and all still do. Like we just want to do well at what we're doing. Like we all took gaming pretty seriously outside of just the
Okay.
Pokemon. And my brother was really good at StarCraft, actually, at one point. Like I don't know if he ever got to Grandmaster, but he was up there. I think he probably broke into GM a couple times. But yeah, he was really good at. My youngest brother was really good at StarCraft for a time.
That's
Um,
dope.
yeah, we're always just really competitive in that. So I guess that like in our play, we were always just trying to be better. We weren't trying to be better than each other so much, especially with like me being in the Masters division, my brothers being in the seniors division. But we're all just trying to be like we're all trying to win the tournament, and we weren't really competing against each other. But when we showed up at the tournaments, we were just trying to win the
Trying to
tournaments.
win. Yeah.
Um,
No,
so
that's
yeah, that really pushed us, I think, for sure. Like made me a better player than most people would be for how long I had been playing the game back then because of that. Because of my brothers, us being able to play so much, and then in the atmosphere that we played, the mentality and everything.
yeah. So it's like 2009. You pretty much started, and
Yeah.
then so you go to like the battle roads back then. Um, when did you start going to regionals?
So back then it was a little bit different because you could only go to one regionals a year.
Okay.
So it's evolved quite a bit. Back then it was one regional a year, and then I think in 2012 you could go to three, and then 13, 14 you could go to nine, and then the most recent era is you can go to every single regional if you want to. I mean, like some European, like in North America, you can go to every
Yeah.
single regional. Except for this year, they had that one. I think it was one of the California ones and Fort Wayne maybe were stacked on the same day. They were like testing
Yeah.
that out, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously, like if like there's probably European regionals on the same day as the North American regionals and stuff, but you can like the last couple of years you could pretty much go to every North American regional as a North
Yeah.
American player if you wanted to. But yeah, back then you could only go to one regional. There's
That's
one
crazy.
weekend where regionals happened. And yeah, 2009 is when we started playing. I only played a couple tournaments in 2009. I was actually a senior for 2009.
Okay.
I aged up to master in 2010.
Okay.
I went to I think like one battle roads. I actually like for a senior I actually did pretty well because I went like I bubbled out at battle roads. And then I got top 4 at estates, and I got second at the regionals. Actually, it was kind of like a miracle run. I was playing a deck called Blast Caddy, which revolves around Blastoise. That for like 3 or 4 energy, it did 60 to 2 Pokemon on your opponent's bench, and then the first attack was just like X amount of damage for water energy in play. And its ability said, look at the top 3, discard them, put any water energy you find into play. And I think Delicatty stacked the top deck somehow. So I was running hot. I was like turn 2 Candy Blastoise 60-60 double knockout throughout all of top 8. So I just kind of like got really lucky there. And I ended up losing to the finals to Nick Chimento, who's a great player from the East Coast. Yeah, that was my first regional as a senior. I didn't really know what was going on in the game. I had my Blastoise deck. I remember I had like I think I only had 2-1 Claydol. Claydol was the big draw support Pokemon at the time, so I played 2 Azelf. So I was like, if I prize my Claydol and my Azelf, I have a second Azelf to get my Claydol. Like, yeah, it was like pretty janky. But yeah, that was my first regionals as a senior. So yeah, back then it was like a little bit almost more lax in the competitive team was because there was that one. Everyone had the one local regional that they could go to. So regionals weren't they were like almost I don't want to say a bigger accomplishment because there was like less to go to, but it was like spread out. It was like definitely more lax, not as like when you read in regionals these days, they're huge events. All the top competitive players are there, or for the most part they are, and it's like a bigger deal, but also like there's so many of them. There's so many more to be won throughout a season. But it was definitely different. It was definitely different for sure.
Yeah, I mean you're finding success so early. When
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of people, they have a small build up, and you jump into, you finally start competing well, But with you, you're right off the bat. You're a senior. You go, I got second at my first regional, which is
Yeah.
like it's crazy because like you're definitely like I have your limitless up and like from limitless, it looked like you turned the table in like 2016, 2017. Was
Yeah.
was that just like I'm gonna start traveling more, or was it like something happened at that point where like, okay, I'm gonna take this more serious?
Yeah, so in the so right after 2009 was 2010. I actually won my first regional as a masters in
In
2010.
1010?
That was when it was
Gosh.
yeah. And that's when it was still, and once again I kind of had one of those like not miracle runs, but just a really good tournament, and it like it worked out in a way where all like I knew all the good players in my area, and like throughout that whole season I played one deck, Shuppet. I played the and I kept improving it every single tournament. Like there was like the cities tournaments back then were in like a period, like they're basically like league cups,
Okay.
but it was in during one period of time, like 3 months. So there's a bunch of them, and I would like make top 8 at like every single one, and then I would lose to a good like the top players
Yeah.
in the area in New England. Then maybe I'd squeak by, I'd hit someone, not one of those guys. I'd beat them in top 8, and then I'd hit them in top 4, and I'd lose. And then I finally won one city championship. I think I top 8'd a state or two. I don't even remember how many states you could go to back then. Maybe it was just one state you could go to. But yeah, and then the regional comes around. My deck just ended up being a good play for the tournament. There's a lot of jump bluff at that tournament, so that's a really good matchup. So I was just kind of cruising through it, and all the good players lost in top 16 and top 8. I never had to hit any of them. There was a one kid I remember who played Gyarados all the time, and I would always beat him because it's a really good matchup. I hit him in top 4, I think. So I did hit a couple of the better players in the area, but they were just playing good matchups for me. So
Dope.
I never hit the top players with the closer matchups, and I kind of just cruised on through to win that regional.
And that's Masters, right?
Yeah, in Masters Division.
Like it's crazy because like I mean there's Bradner who moved up to Masters and saw a lot of success, but a lot of people struggle from that transition. It's a different
there's
game.
usually like a little bit of a. I think a good example of that would even be John Ang, who like his first year or two in Masters wasn't, but he's had a really good season this season. He had a really good season this season. He was really kind of I guess like getting to that next level.
Yeah.
He didn't do like bad the seasons before, but it wasn't quite the same that he's been doing this season. So I think John Ang would be a good example of that for sure. But yeah, Bradner, one of the hardest working players in the game for sure.
Yes.
So it's really no surprise that has been doing so well with his first year.
Right. Yeah. It's like I'll go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say to that 2016, 2017. Like before that, there wasn't as much of incentive to travel because the regionals were less value because you didn't win $5,000
That's
when
true.
you won. So that was the first year where that came around. Before that, and there were some years in there. There was a period of time where I didn't really take the game too seriously at all. Didn't even try and play for my Worlds invite. Like I did, even though Worlds was in I lived in New England and Worlds was in DC that year. I didn't even play for my invite that year because I knew I wasn't going to be able to go to anything.
Okay.
Pretty much besides like states. So I went there and I hung out at Worlds, but I didn't play for my invite that year. And then the other years in there, I didn't take it too seriously or travel too much. I got my Worlds invite for Vancouver and I'm trying to remember the other ones, Anaheim, San Francisco. But then come they announced it's $5,000 for regionals, and the first one was Orlando. Or second regional. The first regional was in Arizona, but it was expanded and it was far, so I didn't go to that. And my friends were like, it was really cheap to fly to Orlando from Austin, so we should go. I didn't plan to go until they brought it up, and I was like, they're like, we have a hotel room. I was like, okay, I'll come with. So I go down there. I'd been playing Yves Holgar, like that's it up to that tournament. Right. I just assumed other people were going to play it. So I played 2 Enhanced Hammer, and it worked out because a lot of good players brought Darkrai, Tina Garb. And then from there, if I didn't go to that tournament, I don't know what would have happened. But winning that tournament was basically like, okay, I have $5,000 now. Why not just go to another one?
Okay.
And then I just kind of kept going from there. And then that season kind of cemented it as being like, okay, this is something I can try and do every year, and I feel like I'm good enough to, place high enough to get like the travel stipends and all that can stay up and get this top 16 every single season.
That's crazy. So it's like Without that tournament, we might not have Azul GG. You know, that's kind
Yeah,
of
it's
crazy.
possible.
That's crazy.
That was
It's
a big tournament for sure.
yeah, like I remember I started playing like 2015, and then it was like when they announced the 5K thing, it was like, oh, all right, we're actually playing games now. Like this
Yeah.
is actually worth playing. And then you just jump in. It's like I won. It's fucking like it's crazy because like the mentality, like there's so many players. There's so many players,
Yeah.
and like obviously you talked about Bradner working so hard. Obviously you work hard because you're winning, and like there's like a level that people a commitment like anything like in anything there's a commitment that these top players that are putting in that other people just don't put in, and
Yeah.
obviously you when you win something like that, you get a lot of resources, which is dope. You know, people start they want to play with you. You know.
Yeah. For sure.
But you made a crazy run through that season. Like, almost, it looks like every tournament you were in top 128. You won with Lurantis Vileplume, which
Yep.
I remember that tournament. Like when you built that deck, I was like, just watching it, I was like, he's gonna win. Like it was so busted. It was so busted. It's like, pick up, let me play all my items. Put it back down. You can't play it. It's like stupid.
Yeah. No, it was a super good deck. And it was played the week before, 2 weeks before in Collinsville, or the previous expanded regional by Ross and Fouché, I think. And there was someone else in there, I think, who had a different, who didn't like. There was like two different groups who had the deck, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like this deck. Like the night before, I was like, I don't know, this deck seems good.
Right.
Like item lock's good. May as well just like play. I didn't really like. And the expanded was pretty open back then. And the meta ended up being really good for me too because there was a ton of Totina and Toad Bats. Were like two big decks that tournament, which is just like free matchups against both those. So that was pretty good for me too. But yeah, it just ended up working out really well in that one as well.
Yeah. So you do well. You know. You made like according to Limitless, you made $13,000 that year. Like, how old are you at that point in 2015 or 2016?
16. That's what 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, almost five now. Four or
Almost
5
five
years.
now. So like 21, 22.
21, 22. It's like, do you look at this and go, man, like $13,000 just to play Pokemon? Like, is it like, you're in school at that point, or
I didn't really ever do too much school at all. I was just working at that point.
you're just working and you're like,
Yeah.
it's a good side gig? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I'm killing it. That's kind of
Yeah,
dope because
yeah.
like you talk to a lot of people because right now you're full time Pokemon at this point,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Full time content creation.
which is dope. When at that point, did you ever think that was possible? Were you like, because I mean, you made a good amount of money. Were you like, okay, maybe we can start focusing more on Pokemon?
Not at that point. It was like a little bit later on for sure. At that point, it was just kind of like, okay, I'm good at Pokemon. I just want to keep going with Pokemon and see where it goes. Especially because like with how big that like upgrade was, like the regionals and the whole tournament structure that Pokemon put out, it was like they could go bigger, and then who knows how big they're gonna go. And they haven't really built
Done
too
it.
much on it since then, which is unfortunate. But like we were at that point, I was like, I don't know, I'm just gonna keep playing the game. As far as content creation goes, I hadn't really even gotten into that. I think I
No.
started streaming after Orlando though. That's when I first started streaming. I didn't stream that much back then or regularly. I only started streaming really super regularly at the beginning of last year.
Yeah,
Is when I really committed to streaming.
yeah. I remember you put out a tweet, and like I talk about this tweet all the time. It was like you made a Patreon, and I talk about it a lot because I think a lot of people in this atmosphere rely on like sponsorships and stuff like that. Where like I felt like went, I'm gonna go all in on myself. I put all my chips on myself. If you want to support me, here's my Patreon. I'm gonna stream. I'm gonna go in. Obviously, you're gonna have sponsors. Like that's a thing. But like
Yeah.
I feel like no one really committed like you did. And like when I seen that tweet, I think I commented on it. I'm like, I think this is what, because I interview a lot of people and they talk about content creation and this, but like I felt like that tweet was like a tweet where something changed in you, where it's like, all right, I'm all in on myself and I can build my own brand.
Yeah.
And then like if we look at it now, I mean, in the Pokemon community, you're either one you toured, and Andrew Mahone are up there,
Yeah.
and like you could look at the Pokemon streams, like they're literally flooded with your supporters and your backers, which is it's got to feel good, you know. It's got to feel
Yeah, for
good,
sure.
yeah, because you built it yourself, and like it's dope. I think that's so sick.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, let's kind of jump back into your success because you go, yeah. I mean, you had a great run, in 2016, 2017. Not so great in Worlds, right?
Yeah, and I don't even remember
Yeah.
the way I remember tournaments is by who and what won. Who won World 2017?
It was the Vileplume, it was the Sidgewai Vileplume year, so it had to be.
Wild. Oh, so was that oh man, I can't remember.
I don't even know at this point. It's so far.
That's when Tord won NAIC? So then Diego won Worlds with Guardy?
Yes. That's
Right?
what it is.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
sure. Oh no, Guardy. That was the next year, right? Because it was Garbodor year. Was Guardy year, or no?
Well, it went from Garbodor, and then we got the Guardy GX set for Worlds.
Yeah. So that's what happened. So no.
Okay.
This one that was the next year, 2017, 2018. I don't know what won Worlds this year, but
Yeah, I have no idea.
yeah. But like, let's just if we go to 17, 18, like this, like your limitless is huge on this one, and like you're playing pretty much. This is Drumpa Garb year, like
Okay.
yeah, and you're
This year I think I go to everything. The year before I didn't
Yeah.
quite go to everything. Like some of the West Coast regionals I stayed away from because it's more expensive to get out there and stuff. It didn't seem worth it. This year I committed to doing every single regional that I could. Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, even when people commit to everything, you find success pretty much in every event. Like, I go to an event and I'm hoping, like, I'm hoping I hit a day 2, let me hit a day 2, It's like, is it, like, how disappointing would it be if you didn't hit? Like, obviously it can't be too disappointing because you hit, like, good things every time, but like your expectations are so high at this point, right? Like you want to win. Like
yeah.
Yes, there's like you've gone way past everything. You just want to win at this point. So it's like if you're not winning, it's not the same, right?
Yeah, I mean every time I go to an event, I show up to try and win, but I also like am reasonable with like the outcome or like
okay,
it was a bad deck choice. I mean we had like a decent example of this. We played Dolstall at Florida Regionals this season, and Xander and squad brought an ADP deck that our build just couldn't beat. And it's like, all right, but we beat like pretty much everything besides that. The only reason I didn't have a shot at top 8 is I lost to Gustavo in a very close set. Gustavo's a great player, so like there's no shame in losing to Gustavo, and I ended up top 32 in there. But if I had beaten Gustavo, who knows where I could have gone? Probably only far enough to only lose to one of the ADP players, but like it's kind of one of those things. Like our deck was a really good choice, but the ADP just kind of showed up, so it's like. Eventually, we're gonna hit them, and we're gonna lose. That's kind of what happened to us at that event.
Yeah, at the end of like 2018, is that when you joined DDG or like you committed to? Because like, is that your testing? Your testing group always been that, or did you commit to that team finally?
I played with Mendarvis for a long time, and then we didn't really play with the rest of the guys until Portland Regionals. 1819, I want to say. The one that Jimmy won with Zoro Toad. But me and Jimmy had been playing together and had, on and off different testing partners that we played with for since I'm trying to think. Since yes, I think since the Yveltal Garb season.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think Yveltal Garb.
That's good. Like you see how that's a real consistent thing with top players. They have a group that is just really good too, and you guys work really well together. And I think that's like such a key thing. I think people should try to find a testing group. I mean, it's hard to find like a successful one, but I think working together with the same people all the time is just a lot more beneficial than trying to do things solo.
Yeah, no, it definitely
Um,
helps out. Finding a testing group is like super beneficial, especially having like the same people, so like you can kind of work together better. Like work together better. Like some people are stubborn, and you can kind of like know how to talk to them and work with them. Um, so that's like a huge benefit to, especially like when you respect them as a player and like respect their opinion to an extent, of course, if they're being stubborn. But that's what, if you work through that stubbornness with them, then all of a sudden then you're like on the same page and it's working that much better. And we always had the mentality when where was the DDG group that we should always play the exact same 60. And I think that's something that, I mean, not everyone's testing group does, but I think that's what you want to be on that kind of same page. Like you should be
right.
able to argue each other into what you think is right, or like agree with your teammate eventually. But you should, at the end of the day, play the same 60 in the tournament, because one of you is correct and you should just put enough time, or one of you should like give in eventually. And if someone has just like a slight edge in the argument, like then they're right. You just kind of give up. Like, it's, don't let your pride get in your way of having to be right, and just like end up on the same page.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't think anyone's ever really brought that up because like we talk about Texas group all the time. It's like, oh yeah, they played the same 60, but when you explain it like that, it's such a more in depth. Like, there's a reason you play the same 60 because you guys put in so much time that there is no questions. Someone was right. That like we fought. That we're in rooms, we're fighting over this, and someone is going to be right, and we're going to play the same 60, which is like, it's so far over people's heads. I think. In Pokemon, where like even in like my testing group, that doesn't happen. There is an argument that we'll play the same deck, but there will be that argument, and there is no resolving. There is. Now I'm playing a hand hammer, and you're playing energy switch, and
Yeah,
we'll
yeah.
see what happens. But when you explain it that way, it's like we should be better. We should be better.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Exactly.
super
Yeah, you want to
dope.
get to that point because
Mm-hmm.
then your deck's better, or at least your process of figuring out what is better like becomes better. Because there's so many
Yeah.
different, like, because when you have a 60 card deck and there's like so many different opinions and stuff flying around, like there's going to be differing 60 cards, when you're filling out your deck list. But if you can get to the same page, I think it's just beneficial for like a testing group, for sure, like on a whole different level.
Yeah, that's so dope. Um, I want to talk about the DDD season. I think the DDD season is definitely something in Pokemon history that is always going to be there. Like, I think people, because I think it's almost the gold standard at this point. Because if you look at this season, you guys took a group of players that are very successful, put them together, and dominated for pretty much the entire season.
Yeah, kind
And
of fell
then,
off a little bit at the
at the
end,
end,
but
but I mean, pretty much. But I think that was people adapted.
yeah,
I think at the beginning of the season, you guys had basically like if you would think like esports wise, you guys committed to like a team house where we're gonna play Civ 60, we're gonna dominate. You dominated, boom, boom, and then everyone had to adapt and go, okay, what they're doing is right, and if we don't adapt to that and start working together, we're not gonna succeed like them. And if you look at this season, I mean, you have like Bradner's group with Bakari and
yeah, the lab.
Lab. You had Cutter Tap, which was doing well too. And it's like,
Yeah.
and like when you guys decided to do that, did you guys think the success would come as easy as it did? Because Pendarvis went on like a 3-4 regional streak, and then you had Caleb on a streak, and then you're in there, you're in top 8 almost every time too. It's like
Yeah.
it became a meme at that point.
I don't think it was expected, because like the whole Portland thing was just like, we're just looking for more people to work with. Me and Jimmy we're like, we just need more people to work with, because lost a couple people who been working with before, so we're just like, all right, let's just hit up. I think Jimmy just wanted to hit up Caleb, or we talked about hitting up Caleb, so we just hit up Caleb. We're like, all right, we're gonna just get a hotel room. Let's work for this event. We got there like a day early, and we were just testing stuff out. At that event, Isaiah ended up playing a different deck than us. He was on the other control deck, which at the end, he was basically playing Pidgey Control in
Yeah.
Expanded before Pidgey Control was a deck. his deck might have been better overall to be honest. But we came up with the Zoro Toad thing, which was just kind of an insane deck for like no one was like preparing to play around what was happening with that deck. So we
Yeah.
kind of dominated Portland, and I mean it worked. So we were just like, all right, let's do it again. And then I forget what was the event after that.
Um, yeah, Ronarch, which you guys,
Roanoke.
yeah, Ronarch.
Okay, then we played Guard. Was that really the one after?
I don't know if it was exactly the one after. It's the one in November, so it was October, November. So, and I don't know if there was one in between that, but
I feel like there had to be one in between that because that was. Oh, there was Brazil in between that, right? Yeah,
Okay.
Brazil had to happen in between that. So yeah, Brazil happened. We hit him with another controls Zoroark deck. Danny won that. And then I guess there might have been another regional in between that. And then there was Roanoke that came around, and
you guys put the.
we didn't really know what to play, but we were like, yo, Robin's deck from Brazil was really cool, or the Limitless Guardy deck was really cool. Let's just play that.
Yeah.
Let's just do that. And I think that deck was a ton of fun. That's my favorite deck from maybe my favorite deck from that year because that deck was a ton of fun. Yeah, Jimmy won that one. And it just kind of kept snowballing from there.
Right. It's pretty. I don't know. That's what I always use you guys as an example whenever I talk to anyone who wants to take the game serious. I'm like, if you want to take the game serious, you gotta look at this group of people work together and they found a lot of success. And if you want to find success in the game, I think you got to do that. And it's just proven. At this point, it's a proven thing. And I think going forward, I think the competition level is so much higher because all these players are working with each other. I think before you guys did that, it was kind of wild, wild west. Like, if you're in my hotel room, sure, we'll work together. Which still I think happens. But there's always a core group of players that are working together and that find a lot of success. Which I always thank you guys for, which is dope. I know it's like it doesn't sound like you should take credit for something like that, but in a larger picture, if you really look at it, it pretty much was like you guys.
No, I think like I mentioned it before. Like I think we definitely pushed the level of competition in Pokemon, and it's not to say if we didn't do it, no one would, but it would have happened eventually. But we just were the people.
Yeah.
We were the group that did it, and then I think everyone not only took the game more seriously, but almost had to if they wanted to keep up with us.
Exactly. That's what, and like it's cool to be a part of it. Like I went to all these regionals and I made friends with all these people, and you just see the development of like I want to beat DGG. Like you go like it became such a meme. Round one would go off, and it doesn't matter if you were a top player or a bottom tier garbage player. The first you would go over to a group of people, and the conversation would be, "What's DGG playing? What's DGG playing?" And it's like even the person that probably would never the only way they're playing Azul is if they played him round one. Is still asking, "Hey, what's Azul playing?" Like that's how crazy it got. It was like, and then I mean, it kind of got to a dark place. Like don't where the community was against you guys. I mean, they felt like it was everyone versus DGG at some point. I remember going to NAIC that year, and you guys were down in the cafeteria testing, and everyone else was like upstairs, and it got dark. Like people said shit that they regret, and I'm sure there's been a lot of apologies, and I feel like the community is so much closer and nicer now, but at that point some people said shit that I know for a fact that they don't believe that shit anymore. And I think that it just got dark because people get jealous of success, and the adaptation wasn't there yet, and it was just forming. And once they did, and they realized that there's a lot of success in working together, that what you guys did was not, I mean, you guys were super secretive. There was no leaks. There was no thing. And I think at that point it needed to be like that because you were so successful. And I always told people that. I was like, it's hard to be at the top and be friendly. Like it's hard, especially in in this game because it becomes like who are your friends or who wants your list, you know? Like it's kind of weird.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
yeah, it's one of those things. There's like, there's definitely some weird, like, some unfortunate scenarios that came up, and like, people I think had like a bad taste in their mouth sometimes,
mhm.
but like, um, we kind of like pushed that into the community a little bit, the no leaks thing.
Yeah,
It's not a bad thing. It's like if
it's
you
not.
have a group and you want to build a deck and you don't want to share it, that's like fine. It's like it is a competition at the end of the day. Like, and someone should expect to get a deck from anyone, like either. So like if just like if it goes that way, it just goes that way. Like you shouldn't expect to get a deck from someone. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, we were just like we're just gonna play our decks and not share them with anyone, and that's just gonna have to be fine, and people are gonna have to be okay with that because that's just like this is the way it is.
yeah.
Um,
Like I commend you guys
and
for committing to that. Like a lot of people would fold under the scrutiny that people put on you guys as being so toxic and like even though it's not like I don't
yeah,
know, it's not toxic. There was nothing toxic about it. It like wanting to win and in a game that where one card like knowing one card in someone's deck could change a whole outcome
yeah,
of a matchup and being secretive, like calling that toxic is toxic. Like it's crazy that people were like that, but I mean, people would fold under that pressure. Like a lot of people want to be friendly, you know? They
yeah,
want to be friendly. They don't want to be seen like that. But I'm glad like you guys had a group of people that it came to a point where it's like, who cares what anyone else thinks? Like we're gonna work together. We're gonna be successful, and it, I think it was better for the community. I think that actually the community grew from you guys not folding in and like being nicer to people. To,
yeah,
like I guess if you want to say nicer, which is such a stupid like concept. Like, but I think the community just got more tough skin at that
yeah,
point.
yeah. I think
Yeah,
so. Yeah,
it's just
I
a
think
dumb. And like I know you probably don't talk about that a lot, but it's crazy. Like there's so much more aspects to the game than just sitting down and playing cards. Like
yeah,
I mean, we've talked for the last like 20 minutes about just the community wise and like the impact on stuff, and it's crazy. Like it's such a crazy little world that people don't realize Pokemon is. Like it's more than just a child's game, and people's feelings get hurt, and there's arguments, and I mean, there's $5,000 online, which is like in grand scheme of things isn't like a tremendous amount of money, but when you commit this much time and effort into something, it's things get a little dicey sometimes.
yeah. It's not a whole ton of money at the end of the day, but like for showing up to the tournament, competing, may as well give it our
Yeah.
all, or attempt to give it our all.
Right.
And I think we all like as we like a DDG thing is like as we just like we're continuously seeing success, we all wanted it that much more to win the next tournament, and to just keep like dominating the way we were.
Right.
Yeah, every tournament that we won, we wanted the next one that much more.
That's yeah. It's such a great mentality. I want to jump into this Blastoise deck. Like, if you had like I don't know, I think that's one of the most iconic things in your career is that towering
Yeah.
splash for game, which is insane. When you built that deck, was a did you think it was the best deck in the format at that point?
So we've had like sometimes we'd come up with like really good decks. Obviously if we had decks like that like no one played when we played at a tournament. I mean Archie Slice wasn't a known deck at all, right?
Yeah,
And even we played Pikarom at some pretty big like we played Pikarom at UOIC, NAIC that year as well.
yeah,
I think yeah. And so like sometimes we just play like we couldn't come up with anything that was like that much better than everything. So we're just like, okay, what do we think is just kind of the best deck, like overall, the best matchup spread. Because like you have to take some losses or some rough matchups somewhere, and like I did in the finals, like Drampagard was a terrible
yeah,
matchup for Archie Stoice, right?
yeah,
That was a rough matchup. We didn't expect that to show up at all. I think it was the only one in day 2, maybe as well. So he squeaked his way through, but it's a good deck, right? Like
yeah,
I mean, it was me and Jimmy were the people who initially made the Drampagard deck for Dallas regionals the year before, I believe.
yeah.
Drampagard expanded, I guess, making Drampagard an expanded deck. Because obviously it was a deck before then. But yeah, pushing it into expanded. And then, yeah, so it was like, we didn't really expect it. We didn't think it was that great right then. or definitely wouldn't be popular, even if it showed up. It's one of those things. It's not gonna be that popular though, and it wasn't, right? But hit in the finals, and we were just like, Archie seems really good. I had been playing a ton on just streaming, I think, before then. I was liking it a lot. So it's like let's just come up with what we think is the best list for Archie and just play it, because you can just hit hard, and sometimes your opponent can't respond. And that should be pretty decent, and that's just kind of what we went for with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Kirk and them like really hyped that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so glad that they were commentating that, because like, don't get me wrong, Pokemon's great. Like, they're great, but I think they restrict their commentators to be more lax and not show the hype. But like, when something like that pops off, like, as a player, like, if you know the game, that shit is just so big. It's insane. Like, did you see it coming? Were you like, because like, I think as it was against
Szymanski, yeah.
Szymanski, like, I want to say, like, Szymanski is a great player, like, amazing. So, like, you want to avoid that, but he just got into a situation where he couldn't avoid it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just immediately. I mean, he benched that Oricorio.
Yeah.
I think he said he thought it was the Mr. Mime. Like, if I bench this, I'm safe. And it wasn't Mr. Mime.
You're like, when he benched you, you're like, wait.
That's 8, and I was like, even before he benched it, I was like, okay, it's still 7, so I can just like wipe his board, and maybe he can't return knockout. And then he benched it, and I was like, okay, that's just 8 prize cards, or 6 prize cards. My bad, not 8.
Yeah. 5 sucks. Yeah.
6 prize cards. He had 5 before in play, and I was like, okay, well that's 6. So now if I just KO everything, I win the game, instead of just maybe he can't respond if I KO everything.
Yeah.
So then I had order pad heads for the field blower, and then it just kind of.
I always loved that deck. Like, I remember, because I played it in Portland, and I got top 4, and like, just flipping heads on order pads, it's just like such a meme. Like, I remember I played Jimmy, and he like took my dice. He's like, "What the fuck?" Because I was hitting heads on order pads that didn't even matter. I was like, "Fuck, I don't know, man." But yeah, that deck's such a fun deck. I wish like there was more of that, because like, if you look at that year, you guys played a lot of different decks. I think a lot of people play the same deck throughout the year. Like, I had Bacardi on. He's ride or die Pikarom almost everything, and he finds a lot of success with it. And I think a lot of people find a lot of success with playing one deck. How do you feel about that? Because when I look at your limit list, it is scattered with different decks. And do you feel like it's your testing group? You guys you want to find, you have so many different minds that are very good with different decks that you can play different decks like this?
Yeah, I mean, I've been playing so long that it's like, I mean, you can look at most situations and be able to break it down. I mean, there is some nuanced stuff behind it. Playing a deck for longer to figure out those little things and matchups. But having played as long as I have, it's easier for me to pick up a deck, than a newer player, and like be able to play it more optimally. And there's definitely just an advantage to being able to like play a different deck. Like, you can play something like, and Pikarom is maybe like a little bit of a unique situation for like Justin specifically, because Pikarom has just been so good for so long, and even when people think it's dead, it's still really good. Yeah. So since it's come out, it's kind of just been that. So I don't know, maybe Justin's got a little bit lucky with Pikarom being so good and him sticking to it, but maybe he would have also switched off, right? I mean, another kind of like good example of a player who's like a really good player is kind of like Sosa, who's stuck with Yveltal for so long. And I think Sosa overdid it, though. I think Sosa is definitely stuck with his Yveltal a little bit too long, when it had definitely kind of seen its day. And Sosa's a great player. I've told Sosa before, like, just play a tier 1, tier 2, put the Yveltal down, man. Like, I've told him before to, like, and when he does, like, he started playing Luke Metal in online tournaments recently and started winning, right? So like, Sosa's a great player. He can be a little stubborn with his deck choice. Like, he played Ninetales for Worlds the year when Guardy EX was out. I was like, bro, are you sure you want to play this? Like, it's not, Guardy's going to be insanely big. Like, it's not a good matchup. He's like, and he made it to day 2 still, right? So like, but like, at some point you definitely have to, and you want to be able to, if you want to play at the top consistently, you want to be able to just switch decks, and that's something you want to like, and to get more familiar with switching decks and playing a new deck in a tournament, in 2 weeks, you got to do it and then start doing it more, and then you'll just kind of get easier and easier, because you'll see more lines of like weird situations with decks, and then when a new one comes up, you'll be able to handle it a little bit better. So like, I mean, I played decks that I hadn't played with in a while or at all, and I put it to like the Lantis Fire Plume. I played 0 games with that deck before I picked it up and played it in Toronto Regionals. So like, and that gives you an edge, being able to be able to not just stick to your one deck and switch it up. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you'll be doing that, the better you'll play when you do make those switches from deck to deck.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. It's crazy because like, for like to just pick up a deck, like I don't, as a player, like it's hard because I remember when you guys brought the Zoro or Toad deck to Portland, and it was control, and
Yeah.
it won, and then we go to Cups, and I knew in my head that when I go to Cups, all these players are going to try to play that deck, and I tried to play it, and I'm like, I'm going to dominate these people because they don't know what they're doing because the deck is so much more than just a Zoro deck. Like Zoro was so like just 120, you know, but
Yeah.
there's so much more that went in. Because I remember playing against you guys, and it gets to a point where you think you won and then you lost. Like they lock you out. At some point, they lock you out, and like if you don't know how the deck works, you can't do that. And
Yeah.
that just like the time and the effort you guys put into decks is so much greater than people realize.
Yeah.
And you're not only doing it for one deck. Like you're doing it for 6, 7, 8, 9. You had 10 different decks that got at least top 50 in 2018, 2019. Which
Yeah.
like I've had a lot of people on my podcast, and I've talked to a lot of people. That number is actually tremendous compared to, because I mean a running thing on this show is stick to a deck, and even in both formats, people are sticking to one deck. And I mean, I think it's great advice, especially for someone that doesn't have the resources that you have, that doesn't have the time. Like if you stick with one deck and you make it great, it's great. It just to look at these 10 decks in one season, find so much success for you. It just says so much as for you as a player. Like it's fucking awesome, dude.
Yeah, I mean that was our mentality. It was like, if we can't come up with a broken deck, what is the best deck? Like I said, like we played Pikarom at multiple internationals, and like it won Gustavo won. We played it there, and then it got second from Emery, who lost to Stefan. So like the deck did well, even though we weren't the ones. We were like, all right, Pikarom's the best deck, and those two, we're just like, we can't come up with something we think is broken. So like, what is the best deck? Okay, it's Pikarom. Okay, how do we make the best Pikarom list? And I think our EUIC Pikarom list was actually insanely good. We didn't play any 2-prize Pokemon, no Zeraora, no Coco GX. It was just Pikarom and 2 Zapdos, right. And then Jirachi's is just straight consistency. And I think that was that was one of my favorite decks to play. And I lost my winning into top 8 in that one twice.
Gosh,
that was a little.
That's rough. That's rough.
But yeah, that was one of my favorites. My favorite decks to play, I think, that whole year was that Pikarom build, because it was just so different, and people like, I don't know. I won every mirror match except like I lost to one mirror match. There were so many Pikarom mirror matches.
Right.
But he was playing like a turbo build, and that was a crazy good set against him as well. But yeah, it was just, I loved that deck. That deck was a ton of fun.
Awesome.
Just because no one expected like our lines. We had tested that deck. I feel like maybe one of the most we had ever tested a deck, and our lines were so planned out. It felt like every time I went into a game, I was like, all right, I know how to play this. I know what I want to do against like every single matchup. It felt like, and yeah, it just worked out really well. Even though we didn't win that one, it was still great. I love that one.
It's so awesome. If we look at the Worlds last year, obviously we didn't have Worlds this year, but you guys brought the Pidgey, and was that? I mean, no, I don't think anyone's seen it coming. When you look back, do you regret taking Pidgey, or did you? Obviously, you guys have a great testing group, so you guys probably thought out pretty well. Did you think no one was going to see it coming? Did you feel control was super broken at that point?
I mean, we just thought the deck was really good and had like you could do the lock against anything. So there was a couple things. The list could have been better. I think Grant's list immediately after that was definitely a step above ours, a tremendous step
Okay.
above. So Grant was on like a much better list immediately after that with the Jirachis and everything, or even like Bradner's list that he took to call Knoxville, also. So like a little bit more refined. We didn't get it refined enough for sure. The biggest thing we're trying to get is like how do we just get the lock down? We were just working on the lock, and then we were like we couldn't refine. We didn't have enough time to refine the list to make it like flow as consistently as it could. And then another thing we didn't expect Mewtwo plus Espioxus. Something we just didn't expect at all. And that's like a big, I don't know if that would have changed our minds on playing the deck, or maybe we would have added just more power plants or something. And the matchup wasn't terrible. Like I beat Robin, and then I lost to Bert who had the SP. I mean, I don't know for sure if Robin had Espioxus, but I'm pretty sure he did. I don't remember for sure. Yeah, I ended up beating Robin, and then I lost to Bert with the Mewtwo deck as well. And I mean, Isaiah made top 8 with it. And I don't know for sure this, but I think the only reason Isaiah lost in top 8 is because he didn't know that what Heatran did as a card. But I don't know if he would have won if he knew what it did. But I know that's why he lost as fast as he did in that, I think, game 3.
Yeah.
So who knows how much deeper he could have gone. A couple of the other guys had like rough showings, but I don't think we're all. I don't regret it. I mean, if I could go back, I would just put more time in with the deck.
Right.
Like that's what I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change playing the deck. I would just put more time in with it.
Right. It was hard because like I think that was the first time in Pokemon where they kind of just gave you a new format and they gave it to everyone. They rotated and then I think a set was added and a rotation, and so everyone's kind of on the same playing field. Finally, you know, I've been an advocate for that. I think because it's always been like Japan's a couple sets ahead. They got to come back, and then Europe only plays standard, so like that's all they focus on. Where like a North American player plays both, so it's not as focused. But when you rotate and add a thing, you guys had this much time to figure out a deck. Like, do you think that was a huge factor? Like,
no, I mean that was a decent amount of time. As far as I mean, when you look at like some of our other decks that we came up with, like Toad Zoro, we came up with 2 days before Portland. So like,
okay.
And Worlds is a little bit. Definitely give credit to Worlds for being a little bit like everyone is going to that next level, and all the players are on that next level as well. Especially in like the day 2, all the players are like on that next level. So, it definitely is going to be. There's going to be more people with those Zoro Toad kind of decks coming out, right? Like, it's not just going to be just us with our Zoro Toad, or our Pidgey control, which we ended up taking. There's going to be other people with their Pidgey controls or whatever it is, like the Mewtwo deck that Henry brought, of course, winning it the whole thing. The Blacephalon deck from was it Shintaro, right? Who got second?
Yeah.
Like his Blacephalon deck was super cool. So there's gonna be other people with their other things as well. And we didn't think like that we couldn't compete with them. It's just like it's gonna be a little bit harder.
It's gonna be uphill battle. Yeah. So you found, I mean, it's hard to talk about the 2020 season. I mean, you found success like always, but then it got cut off.
Yeah.
So there's really, I mean, I don't really like to talk about the meta in standard in these interviews, but I think you've been a huge advocate on Twitter and social media about ADP, and I think your stance has changed a couple times. But do you really think that card is super toxic for the game?
Yeah,
in this format,
I don't. So I mean, I think I always thought it should be banned. Since like OCIC. First I was like, okay, OCIC could be the Seattle of this year, where Seattle was like, Drampogarb came out and it was like insane amount. I didn't even go to the event, but I saw the results. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm glad I didn't go to the event. That's just insane. And then it didn't end up being that bad, right? Because it toned down a lot. NAIC 2017 is one of the best formats I think Pokemon has ever had.
Yeah.
So it toned down a lot. Like people are figured it out, right? There's nothing to figure out about ADP, and it just. My mic just fell there. There's like a lot of things with ADP. I've wanted it banned like since I made my initial video or statement. I've wanted it banned since then. I don't think the format's terrible if it isn't banned, but I think it does. It's the best way I've been thinking about it recently. It's kind of just like a brick wall in the meta. Like it doesn't move. Sure. Other decks kind of flow. Like these decks become popular and become bad. Like Senna Scorch is popular. Don't play Luke Metal. Okay, Senna Scorch isn't popular. Luke Metal's coming in. Pikarom. it keeps coming up, but it's really hard for like fighting decks to even exist because they really struggle against
Mm-hmm.
the ADP. Like a lot of the decks that are good against Pikarom, like the one prizers and the fighting decks, it's harder for them to exist with ADP in the format. I mean, Pikarom is such a versatile deck that maybe it can handle them anyways, but every deck can beat Pikarom.
Yeah.
Like every deck has you go up against Pikarom, like, all right, I'm playing against Pikarom. You go up against ADP, and you're like, all right, I don't want to play anymore. Like
Yeah.
it's so unfun. It doesn't flow in the meta at all. Like ADP is always a top one, second most popular or most popular deck. It's always a tier 1 deck. Like it does not shift. Like ADP just it sticks there, and it's like I'm still here.
Yeah.
And it's not fun to play against. Is like a big thing as well. Like that can be a factor if a card shouldn't exist or should exist. If it's just not fun to play against at all at any level, even the ADP players don't want to sit down and play against another ADP.
True.
Like no one has fun when they sit down and play against ADP. Like I would, it'd be hard to find someone who you ask and they're like, okay, what's your favorite matchup to play against? Or like, is there any time when you sit down and you're like, oh yeah, I'm playing against ADP, right? Like no one is like that, right? So on top of it being like, and it gatekeeps, like I said, like one prize or struggle against it, stuff like that. I feel like it stunts creativity because of how popular it is. And it's being played less as of late, and maybe that's people getting bored or more people figuring out the matchups for their other top decks. And I don't think it's as big of because like before it was like 25-30% of metas. Last couple of weeks, last month, it's definitely toned down quite a bit, but I still don't think it should exist. Like I still think it should be banned.
Okay.
So super happy to see that Limitless banned it in their standard tournaments, and I hope other TOs follow. And I think the go-to excuse of but Pokemon isn't banned. Does Pokemon care right now? That's like who
cares?
If the reason should not be, you should be able to come up with a better reason than but Pokemon didn't ban it, so I want my tournaments to follow the official rules. For what? Like there's no other official tournaments besides the Players Cup, right? And we'll play in that with ADP, that's fine. But if we think we can improve the game, TOs have all the power, so why not make the game better? If someone could answer for me that without the response of
follow the
Pokemon
rules.
Banned ADP, why should we? If I can be like, what? But why not make the game better if we can? And they come with a good reason. Like I don't think like people shouldn't have the opinion that ADP shouldn't be banned, but like at least come up with something, something different besides TBCI hasn't banned it yet.
Okay, I think that's good. I think that's great. I'm with you. I think whenever I play against ADP, it's not enjoyable.
Yeah,
and I think that's a big factor that people don't really talk about. And if you look in the past, a lot of cards have got banned just because they're not enjoyable. They turn 1 any item lock, turn 1 anything was not fun, and now we have turn 1 ultra curation. It's not fun. It's not fun.
It's not fun.
It's not fun. And like
they got rid of Let Loose.
Yeah.
Reset Stamping expanded. Jesse Jameson expanded because that's not going to be fun to play against, right?
Yeah.
And in current standard, ADP is just not. No one sits down and like we play Pokemon because we enjoyed the game, right? But no one enjoys the game as soon as they're up against an ADPization. Like you stop having fun then. No. You're just like, hope this one's over fast.
Yep.
Maybe they whiff water and I roll them.
Maybe they whiff water.
Maybe they win in 3 turns and it's over and we go to the next game. I get to play a game of Pokemon.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's dope. I think it's good to get like a full statement because like you get people talk about it, but they just write ADP sucks, So it's like, okay, it's cool. Kind of want to finish this off with like what you rose to the top. You started content creating, and then you committed to yourself. Now you're full-time Pokemon. What's life outside of the game? I know it's hard now because it's pretty much your job now. I mean, it is your job now. So outside of the game, it's hard to talk about it now because I mean we're in like the low effort meta of Pokemon at this point era where like probably you're not thinking about like how am I gonna win the Players Cup 3, but like what's it like? Like, are you constantly thinking Pokemon or like outside the game? Do you have other hobbies and stuff?
I do like I play video games and stuff like League of Legends, Warzone have been like my top 2. I enjoy those a lot. But that's basically it. But like I really like, so like I really just like messing with and like mainly my stream or even like my videos and editing and doing little things to just improve those. Like I don't really like I don't buy myself anything, but what I do buy myself is like equipment that I'm like that's enjoyable to me and I love it. Like I got a Go XLR a couple of months ago, which is like a audio mixer. super cool audio mixer, and I didn't know how cool it was until I got it, and then I got it. I was like, oh, this is so cool. Like that's the
Right.
kind of stuff that I just like getting for myself, messing with, or even like I recently found a new plugin that I can use in on my stream to make sources move around
Okay.
with like a click of a button, and then like that's really cool. So I've just been messing a ton with that. So like that's how I spend my free time. If I'm not like recording videos, editing videos, streaming, I'm messing with my stream, like the scenes and stuff. I'm always like looking at like different streaming gear and
Making
stuff,
things.
stuff I would want to upgrade. Been
Right.
recently looking at like computer parts, been doing a lot of research on that because I recently got a uh, 3080, which I was
Okay.
super hyped for. I haven't
That's
upgraded my
all.
graphics card in a while, so I had a pretty old one, but did the big upgrade, and I'm gonna build the rest of a new PC around that. So I've been like looking at, I haven't looked at parts in a while, but I'm looking at cases and like of the processor and motherboards and stuff. So like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
how I spend my most of my free time right now, especially because not a whole lot to do while we're
Right.
in lockdown.
Yeah. It's tough. Like, I know a lot of kids or a lot of players go to school and they do this, and but when you're
Yeah.
full time Pokemon, it's like it gets like I think I talked to freaking why can't I think of his name off the top of my head? God, now I just drew a blank. But he was full time Pokemon, and like recently he got a job and stuff. But
Yeah.
like he didn't do nothing. Like all he did was Pokemon, which I think you could easily get caught up into, especially when you're in a season, and you're going hard. Like it becomes, especially if you're full time Pokemon, it just becomes your life, and that's
Yep.
all you think about. And I think it's always healthy. Like even like when you talk, like all you do is basically stuff for your stream, which is like really good. Like even though it has Pokemon relation to it, it's more of you're improving yourself.
Yeah.
Basically, you're trying to better your content. You're bettering everything, which I think is always great. It you got to find that outlet to the game. You know.
Yeah. 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 It definitely has been my go-to recently. It's just been getting into like
Right.
more of the nuance, the higher level things you can do with like streaming and even video editing and stuff like that. Just like
It's
improving what I do without playing Pokemon.
Yeah, and it's super interesting. You know, anytime you dive into anything, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, there's so much that you didn't know, which
Oh
is
yeah,
it's
yeah.
always interesting. Freaking Jose Morero. I feel like I thought about it. I was like, yes, that's who I'm talking about. Yeah, he was full time Pokemon, and that's all he did. And then I was like, but now, I mean, obviously, a lot of people have to focus on other stuff with
Yeah.
2020. But I mean, it is the new year. Let's wrap this up with like, what are your hopes for the upcoming year?
I mean, I just want to keep growing and doing what I'm doing. I mean, one of my constant hopes, like, I know PTCGO and Pokemon content in its current state, I don't think we'll be able to live forever.
Okay.
Or like, I mean, like one big thing that's been happening is like people just like opening packs of Pokemon. So like
Yeah.
I mean, if I want to stay in Pokemon, maybe I'd have to go that way. But I'm a little bit more, have a more of a competitive drive. So I'd probably be wanting to do something
Yeah.
else. So I know like my hope for this year would be an announcement that there's a new PTCGO client coming out. I think it'll happen. Probably not. So I mean, just keeping on the path that I'm on and growing as far as my content goes, and trying to get into like new and more things. Like I plan to like start playing the VGC, learning that.
Okay.
Another game that I want to try out and stream a lot is TFT. I want to just give it a shot, see how much I like it. I gave it a shot when TFT first came out, and I like I play a lot of League of Legends.
Yeah.
I guess so. I of course gave TFT a shot, and I was like, oh, it's okay. I'm gonna go back and
Right.
play solo queue. But I want to like give it a full shot and see if I, give myself like make myself like kind of sit down and play through it for a couple days or a couple weeks, and like if I do start really enjoying it, maybe take that a little bit further. I don't plan on like leaving Pokemon or anything, but I want to like expand
Right.
my horizons or whatever, and give
Yeah.
myself more options to find things that I enjoy making content around.
Right. I think that's a big step. I think a lot of streamers get stuck in a spot, even like the biggest streamers in the world, where you're just a League of Legends streamer, and to even think to go outside and play a different game is like mind blowing. So, but I think you're in like a really niche place, and Pokemon is it is what it is. It doesn't
Yeah.
grab, like you're not going to be the top streamer ever, but to branch out and hope your audience follows. And I think the way you've gone about it. You have a kind of cult following. I mean, I don't want to use cult because that's such a bad word, but it's like you could see it. Like I said, in like these big streams that are Pokemon related, like you have a lot of followers that are in these streams throwing up the rat, and it's like it's such a good thing. Like to think that a Pokemon streamer gets this big because it's all. I mean, you watched like you had Tablemon and like they did their thing, but I don't think it ever got to the level you're at where you're consistently like 300-400 people, and you get the people in other streams that are repping you, and like yeah, it's got to feel good because you built it yourself, and then to try to step out of Pokemon. I mean, obviously Pokemon's your diehard thing, but to grow, I think you're going in the right direction. And I mean, you gotta, especially if you're gonna do this a full-time gig. I mean, you gotta go up, you know.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean, that's how I see it as well.
Right. Before we wrap it up, if you got any shout-outs or something you want to do.
I mean, just check out the YouTube, check out the Twitch.
I'll link it all.
GG on both of those. Yeah, just that. Go check them out.
Yeah, I really appreciate all the time, dude. Great story. I think a lot of people can listen to this, and hopefully in the future we get like some real events, and they can see you on stream and go, man, this fool, him and his brother, and he's dominated for years, even from the beginning, and now look at him now, he's still dominating, and it's such a good story, you know. That's why I love doing this. You get such a backstory from these players that all you do is see an hour worth of gameplay of them winning a regional, and you're like, oh, they're cool. But when you actually sit down and talk to someone, it's like, oh, like he puts in this much effort. He has this much. His mentality is so much different than mine, and it's like it's something to cheer for. So I appreciate you coming on and telling your story, man. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, guys, that's it. I'll be back. We'll be back Thursday with another Pokemon breakdown with Rule and Isaiah. But for now, guys, we're gonna scoop it up.